Hut Hut, Pizza Hut.
The New York Jets select David Bailey.
JETSFUCKEDUPAGAIN. To preface everything I'm about to say, I do not think David Bailey is bad. But when you draft at number 2, you have to find the blue chip players. Your roster is utter poop ass and you need everything. So maybe don't just pick the highest value position. Instead, let's look for the best player available. And the Jets failed to do this. Instead, they decided to take the safest player they could possibly find. When your head coach's ass is on fire, he's gonna find whatever he possibly can to save himself and buy another year. To know the state of mind Aaron Glenn is in right now, here's a perfect quote. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. What the fuck does that mean? I mean, what is the logic behind a defensive head coach picking the third best edge rusher in the class at number 2? Sure, ratings are subjective, but what is on film is that he's a bad run defender and only has a speed rush. Just spamming that against Big 12 defenses isn't going to translate to the NFL. The Jets practically told everyone that they took the safe pick. Arvell Reese and Ruben Baines sitting there had much higher upsides. Did they pass on Reese because he doesn't have a true position? Maybe. Did they pass on him because he had a .4 GPA? Also maybe. But going with the guy that went to Stanford seems like a safe bet for them. And discrediting Ruben Baines solely because his arms came back a little short at the combine is nonsense. Had he measured a little bit better, there's no doubt he would have been the pick at 2. But congrats, Jets. You picked Will McDonald again. It's the most Jets thing ever to cancel the 30 visit for Bailey. Nice, guys. You really confused everyone with that smoke screen. You picked it fucking 2. Just in case anyone wanted to trade up to 1 and pass on Mendoza, you really got him. The silver lining for Jets fans, at least you didn't force quarterback at number 2.
No, you're gonna love it here. You're gonna love it here. You're gonna love your coach.
The Arizona Cardinals select Jeremiah Love, running back, Notre Dame.
Someone had to make this mistake. Whether it was pick 3 or 13, this was always going to make the list. What's something that will come up first when assessing why bad teams stay bad? Picking running backs at number 3. They saw Vegas do this last year, and it was one of the most miserable seasons ever to follow. But I guess if you want to do what Vegas did and tank for number 1 this year, this is a good start. In order for this to be a good pick down the road, he literally has to become one of the best running backs of all time, not just in this draft class or the league. What's even more frustrating about this pick is running back was one of the only positions on the entire roster with depth. Is it really that scary to have Tyler Algier as your featured back that you really need to go and spend a top 10 pick on a running back? For anyone that needs to be reminded, offensive lines make running backs look good, never the other way around. This might be the first time that a rookie contract is a financial liability right from the beginning. Teams don't want to pay the best running backs in free agency, let alone have to pay a top-of-the-market deal to a rookie. Saquon's guarantees are $36 million. Jeremiah Love is guaranteed $53 million. Worst contract of the offseason goes to a structured rookie deal. I'm sorry, Cardinals fans. Your owner is drafting players solely based on if they'll sell more tickets. But as a Giants fan, I must thank you. And on behalf of Titans fans as well, you really saved our teams from having to deal with this bullshit. For anyone that hasn't seen it, please take a look at the Cardinals depth chart. It makes this pick even worse. No wonder this team has only made the playoffs 11 times in 106 seasons.
The Tennessee Titans select Carnell Tate.
The Titans didn't make us wait long to see another shitty pick. Who better to grab at the 4th overall pick than a guy that hasn't been a number 1 receiver since high school?
And then we got Jeremiah's teammate right here. Why you ain't laugh, bro? I'm trolling.
I get it. You have a young quarterback in Cam Ward and you want to see if he's the guy. But needing a playmaker for your quarterback isn't a good enough reason to jump at a late first-round talent this early. Being the consensus number 1 on a lot of boards doesn't mean this is a good pick. I'm not going to pretend that I analyzed film on Carnell Tate, but if we're being honest, his best quality in college was being teammates with Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and Marvin Harrison. Despite the quality around him, he never eclipsed 60 receptions or 900 yards in a season. This pick is Brian Daboll written all over it. He must have snuck into the war room in the wee hours of draft morning, had fun doing a little tinker time with the board, and they didn't notice the changes he made. And when they were on the clock, they panicked and submitted this pick. I can never make sense of the bad teams that pick at the top of the draft every year, reaching, despite being spoiled for choice, just to fill a void on the roster. I've spent my fair share of time playing Madden just like everyone else, And when you see the shitty 63 overall, you want to replace him. But you don't do it with the 4th overall pick in the draft. A receiver at a pick with this much value shouldn't have speed as a main concern. In no way is Carnell Tate a bad player, but he's just destined to have 10 years of being a wide receiver 2 or 3 in the NFL.
The Miami Dolphins select Caden Proctor, tackle, Alabama.
This guy's inclusion on the list is purely from me being a hater. For those of you who aren't familiar, this guy's college story is so beyond frustrating, even for someone that doesn't have feelings tied up in either team involved. So to set the stage, Proctor is from Des Moines, Iowa. He was a very highly rated 5-star in the class of 2023. In high school, he commits to hometown Iowa University, and he sticks with that for 6 or so months. And then the day before early National Signing Day, bails and commits to Alabama, and signs the next day. Okay, no harm, no foul. Saban had enough pull to pry him away from his hometown school. But that's not even close to the end of this story. A year after enrolling, he enters the portal. Saban's gone and he's got no reason to stay. So where does he commit to? Iowa. He moves back home and enrolls. The prodigal son has returned. What a great story. Nope. 2.5 months later, he enters the portal again. But this time, goes back to Alabama. What an unbelievable fuck you to your hometown team. As an enjoyer of high school football recruiting, I just couldn't believe the way this all unfolded. And honestly, I wrote off Proctor long ago. In no world did I think he'd be a first-round pick. But what really matters is who Proctor is as a football player. The highlight of his scouting report is that he is massive. Like, imposingly large on the football field. Being huge can get you by nicely in college, but not in the NFL. Especially considering the fact that he's typically cited as being bad at weight management and having questionable conditioning. Unfortunately, there's plenty of examples in the NFL of offensive linemen not taking weight management seriously enough and end up being busts in the league. And as someone who really respects the opinion of Nick Saban, this quote is pretty concerning.
Now, the issue with him is he's not a bad person. He'll do whatever you ask him to do once you get him in the building. But when he's not in the building, he might get a little overweight. He might not come in the best shape. And those are the kind of things you got to manage with him. But I think they're manageable. In other words, he's not really a self-starter that's going to go out there and, get in great shape and come to camp like you want him. But if you can get him to come to camp, if you got him there and get him ready to go.
It's got to sting a little bit to hear this from his former coach. It's not my place to debate the nuanced traits of offensive linemen, but I watched this guy enough in college firsthand. He struggles against the good defensive ends and edge rushers in the SEC, and he's slow and gets cooked by speed. Combining this with the weight thing just seems like a recipe for disaster. To go back to the most primal Neanderthal drafting school of thought, you don't take Alabama tackles early in the first. Evan fucking Neal, man. On draft night, it seemed like the Dolphins got scared about Fano and Maui Noah getting taken at 9 and 10, so they panicked and took Proctor at 12. This roster is nowhere near competing. They should have just sat and taken Downs at 12, but instead they let Dallas move up one spot and snag him.
Wow! Wow, man! Hey.
He's gonna love Miami. Wow.
Okay. Holy shit. Get in the trenches.
Thank you.
They had the opportunity to punish everyone that passed on Downs. He's the best and maybe the most NFL-ready player in the entire draft, but instead they overthought it. There was one true consensus blue-chip player in the entire draft. He was right there, and you whiffed. But to leave you with something positive about Caden Proctor, his teammates spoke very highly of him.
I'll never forget the most athletic thing I've ever seen you do, and that was when we went to Chipotle when we first got to campus, and I saw you eat the bowl in 35 seconds with the plastic spoon, not even the metal spoon, and that's when you really gained my respect.
Okay. The New York Jets play Kenyon Sadiq.
That's the worst thing I've ever seen.
A luxury pick for maybe the worst roster in the league? You bet your ass. The fun, athletic tight end has to be the most ridiculous selection the Jets could have had here. Typically when you sell the farm the year prior, you want to build back a solid core. So I genuinely cannot imagine what justifies this pick. If Sadiq falls to the Rams, that's a banger, but you are the Jets. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. You don't have good players. You just picked a tight end in the second last year. And again, you don't have good players. You just traded them all away. It's not like he's a complete tight end. He's a great receiver that has elite speed, but doesn't have the blocking ability you want at this spot. You're taking this guy at Brock Bowers territory. and this is not Brock Bowers. It really frustrates me to no end watching teams piss away multiple first-round picks. Obviously, this is all speculation, but to me, it seems like they expected Ty Simpson to be available here. And I don't blame them, honestly. I didn't think you'd have to worry about Los Angeles, Baltimore, or Tampa taking him. If they truly viewed him as the best player available, I get it. But maybe, considering his position, they should have looked into the second best player available this time. I also think it's worth considering that this selection won't look good for at least a while. He will probably have close to no production next year, especially considering that Geno Smith is going to be throwing to the other team. My heart broke for Kenyon a little bit when he said he thought the call from the Jets was a prank. No, sir. Welcome to football hell. This is real.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a prank call for a second. But no, I appreciate it.
No, we're not pranking you, brother. No, you're going to be a Jet. You're going to be a Jet.
While we didn't touch on the Omar Cooper pick, I think we can summarize the Jets' 3 first-round picks something like this.
1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out.
The Minnesota Vikings select Caleb Banks, defensive end, Florida.
For my money, this easily has to be the biggest reach of round 1. Half of it is who Banks is as a player, and the other half is the situation the Vikings were in. The Vikings have telegraphed their first-round pick this year for nearly 2 seasons now. It didn't matter who was on the board, the pick was always going to be interior D-line. In 25, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave were supposed to be the fix for the run defense. I thought these 2 guys would be the fix for them. I mean, on paper, they gave them large deals and have had successful careers. But 1 year later, they're both released. In a weak defensive tackle class, it seemed they had all the opportunity in the world to jump down a few slots and pick up some draft capital. They ignored that opportunity and instead ripped off a crazy suspect pick. I guess it's not that surprising considering they went into this draft without a GM at all. Vikings fans probably thought they finally got rid of Kwesi, but honestly, he might have been behind the scenes pulling the strings on this one. If you're going to fire off the need-based pick regardless of circumstance, at least take a safe prospect. Instead, they went with one of the riskiest players in the entire class. I'm no doctor, but the medicals here for Caleb Banks are terrifying. 2024, foot surgery. 2025, an injury in which his foot, quote, fully snapped. And yes, subsequently foot surgery.
It sounds awful quiet, man. You with your family? Where are you at?
Yeah. I got like 100 people with me
Let me hear some of those 100 people, man. You're a Minnesota Viking. There we go.
And 2026, at the Combine no less, a foot injury, resulting in, you guessed it, foot surgery. Again, not a doctor, but reoccurring foot injuries on a guy that has to stay over 300 pounds is not what you're looking for. So we've established that his injury risk is borderline catastrophic. Well, hopefully his college production justifies the pick. It doesn't. At the bare minimum, hopefully he's like 20 years old and can give you high upside. He's 23. He spent 5 years in college. I'm going to step inside the minds of the Vikings front office. They have no GM. But boy, when they saw that RAS score, they just knew they had their guy. Production and all the other red flags be damned. They'll tell you the common bullshit that this was the number 1 guy on their board, but let's be honest, he filled a gap in the depth chart. Since you don't give a shit about best player available, let me show you what could have been. Dylan Thieneman was sitting right there. The perfect regen of Harrison Smith. And I'm saying this on nothing other than the fact that he's a white safety. But realistically, he could have been an anchor in the secondary for the next decade. But instead, you took an injury-prone player that likely won't be on the roster in 5 years. I get the feeling that Vikings fans are pretty sick of the injury-prone players. But that's too fucking bad. That's what you'll get, and that's final. By the way, you're picking a quarterback next year.
Oh, and the reigning Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks!
And with that, with the 32nd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Jadarian Price, Notre Dame, running back.
Did anyone think the Seahawks wouldn't pick a running back in the first round? What's wrong, Seattle? George Holani isn't good enough for you? I'm sorry for being redundant, but I think you can see the pattern developing. I'm sick of seeing teams take need-based picks and reaching. But here's the caveat. When you're the reigning Super Bowl champs, there are things you can get away with that the fucking Jets and Cardinals can. Nonetheless, taking a college backup in the first is a bit questionable. But hey, at least they did it 28 picks after the Titans. Honestly, I don't think they needed to make this pick here. I'm not sure if anyone was beating down the door to draft a running back that didn't feature in college. When you consider that the next back didn't go off the board until the 26th pick of round 3, it's safe to assume that this one could have waited a little while. I'm sure that one of the dog shit teams would have given Seattle something to slide back into the end of day 1, but they really just decided to stay firm and reach. I don't get it. Considering John Schneider is calling the shots, and he tends to go ice cold in the draft for a few years at a time, this might be where the hot streak ends for a while. I'd be real worried here if I was Arizona. If Price ends up being better than Jeremiah Love, this has to be the end of picking running backs high in the draft. At this point, you would think that the teams would have learned. Just pick the guy that has a decent amount of tread on the tires, that tests well at the combine, snag him in the mid to late rounds and call it a day. I'm sure he'll be pretty decent, but I don't think this is much different than the Saquon situation a few years ago. Everyone blew smoke up his ass, not considering how easy it is to run behind a good offensive line. The defense was terrifying last year. What's stopping you from taking another guy to make it even more terrifying this year? The 5th round edge rusher isn't going to do shit for you, but the 5th round running back might. I may be being hyperbolic a little bit here, but I genuinely think I'd rather have an elite kicker in the 1st round than a running back in the 1st round.
The San Francisco 49ers select Deshaun Stribling, wide receiver, Ole Miss.
I can't act like I know ball if I don't venture outside the 1st round. So with the 1st pick in the 2nd round, we got Deshaun Stribling. This one was a head scratcher. He was sitting at 80 to 90 on consensus boards, a pick that quite literally nobody expected at this point. But we all must remember, nobody is more prideful about drafting than John Lynch. So much so that anyone that asks him about his bad picks better tread very lightly.
John, your draft board seems to deviate quite a bit from the consensus. Why are you confident with that, given your track record drafting the last few years? It seems like it leads to you making reaches.
Well, I appreciate that you think that. Depends whose consensus. We got consensus in this building. That's the that's the consensus I care about.
There's something particularly interesting about watching the former player turned GM or coach answer questions from the normal person. Sometimes they almost seem shocked that someone dare challenge their authority on football. The normal person may not have a gold jacket, may have never won a Super Bowl, but we sure do know when your picks are garbage. San Francisco has been on a run of mediocre to bad classes for years now. It's really not talked about enough how much stumbling into the Purdy pick saved this guy's job. The Trey Lance disaster really should have been the end of things for him in San Francisco. Absolutely blowing it on the number 3 overall pick only to be saved by Mr. Irrelevant has to be something we've never seen before. But how much longer can he keep surviving on the success of the 2017, 18, and 19 draft classes? But on to the pick itself, Stribling was given that late riser tag that we often see, but not rising enough to be 50 picks early. Just like essentially every other pick in this video, this was a player that was forced because it filled a void. Jawan Jennings is gone, and what was one of his best traits? Blocking. I'll give you some time to guess what Stribling possesses. Blocking. Like, at some point we have to draw the line. Picking a guy because there's a hole in the depth chart is just simply not a good enough reason. I know this holds no true significance, but it's funny how Lynch reaches for an Ole Miss receiver in the 4th round last year, and he rides the bench, getting essentially no playing time. So what does he do? Doubles down and reaches for another one this year, but at 33 overall. I have a sneaking suspicion where I think these picks might come from.
You know, if you aren't using it, you're already behind. And the cool thing is, you know, what we found, you don't need to be an expert. You know, just like you at home planning a travel itinerary, you can just ask the thing and it can spit out some pretty good things, some pretty good ideas. I do think every team is probably using it in some form or fashion. And I think that will only increase as we move forward.
So we're using glorified Google for making picks in the NFL fucking draft. I really hope he's talking about using it to make spreadsheets and shit. 49ers fans, pray to God Shanahan never goes anywhere, because without him, this is a sinking ship. There's not many coaches that can survive the bullshit that happens in that war room every April. Does Lynch know more about football than me? Of course. I know the consensus board is completely arbitrary, but at some point you have to stop deviating from the opinion of the masses. But like everything else in the NFL, there won't be any changes until the bottom falls out.
Cannot play with him. Cannot win with him. Cannot coach with him. Can't do it.
The Jacksonville Jaguars select Nate Borkacher, tight end, Texas A&M.
After the 2nd round of the draft, this slot was going to be saved for the Borkacher pick. But as the draft progressed, this turned into their class as a whole. And boy, was the James Gladstone experience in full effect. To set the stage, let's travel way back to last year. We all saw the pictures of the new Jags GM hire. He looked like a kid. It felt like the end of the elderly running NFL front offices. It felt like a new school of thought was taking over in the NFL, and I was all for it. And soon came his first draft day. What a milestone. Maybe lay low, get a lay of the land, and don't do anything impulsive. He did the opposite, trading the number 5 pick, a second, a third, a fourth, and a 26th first for a guy that would, quote-unquote, alter the trajectory of the sport, and a year removed is rumored to be switching to just corner and leave the wide receiver role behind after facing injury in his rookie year. Then the rest of the picks that weren't shipped off were objectively bad and didn't produce or contribute much at all. None of the players he selected started more than 4 games. So, you mortgage the future for a guy that barely played and didn't live up to what he was sold as, even after only 1 year, and back that pick up with mediocrity. Few people can predict what a GM's tenure will look like. It's not like coaches and players. Often we give these guys a long leash to see what they can do. Let them establish some sort of a track record before we judge. The sentiment is that we give a guy 3 or 4 years before we develop an opinion on them. But that timeline has been massively expedited here.
So, how's your Duval, by the way? Have you been practicing that?
I have not been practicing it, but you guys want it from me right now?
Let's get it. Come on.
Duval.
Nah, bro. You got
Gladstone needed a better showing in the 2026 draft, but draft number 2 ended up being considerably worse than the first. Assessing whether a pick was good or not before they ever play a snap of football is a difficult thing to do, but we can look at perceived value to see if a pick was good or not. And I find that the draft capital over expectation metric from Sharp Football can be pretty telling. Obviously, charts and graphs don't dictate what happens on the field, but this metric is ugly for Jacksonville. To start the draft, Gladstone goes with Nate Borkacher at pick 56. If you had never heard of this guy before draft night, you wouldn't be alone. This is going to be hard to believe, but in college, he had 38 catches for 417 yards and 5 touchdowns across 5 seasons. This is a glorified blocking tight end with essentially no production in the second fucking round. To cite the DCOE metric, he was selected an unbelievable 107 picks before expected. Worse for the Jags, this wasn't even the worst pick of the draft. 4th round pick Wesley Williams was taken at 119 with an expected value of 236. That's a reach of 127 slots. But to further illustrate the point here, some of the other picks were reaches of 60, 67, 69, 87, and 97 picks respectively. It's truly just a horrific sight. How do you reach so grossly so many times in one single draft? It's not even like Gladstone is an RAS score merchant that just picks based on combine testing. Most of these guys didn't blow anyone away with their athleticism and traits. I cannot understand the thought process here. The only explanation that I can conceive is that this front office and their GM thinks they are smarter than everyone else. It's purely arrogance to go against the consensus of everyone this drastically. Then to go on in your post-draft press conference and say that you nailed all 10 picks is fucking outrageous to me.
We ended up putting players in slots across all 11 picks, and can in fact say that we were able to nail 10 of those 11, and we only made 10 selections. So that was a pretty fun outcome, knowing that we were able to map it as cleanly as we were. I don't think that had anything to do with skill, but maybe a little more luck than that. But that was a pretty exciting piece.
Hell yeah, dude. You cooked drafting those players most people had targeted as UDFA signings. Value isn't a term thrown around for picks just for shits and giggles. Practically bragging about shitting your pants for 3 days isn't what you hope for if you're a Jags fan. But for 31 other fan bases, it'll be fun to watch this operation crash and burn. Much like Kyle Shanahan, Liam Cohen will find himself having to outcoach the mess that's created for him each year on his roster. And if it's anything like the situation in San Fran, James Gladstone will have a long career of pulling names out of a hat each April. Oh yeah. Duval.